It's just great if you could turn off your camera as well, just because we are recording the session, and that makes the recording a little bit cleaner for those who might be viewing it later if faces aren't popping up in the recording that they're watching. Not that you don't have lovely faces, but it's just a little bit nicer for the recording if we limit the number that are shown. Plus, you could be famous for showing up on, you could wind up a meme. There's any other number of things that could happen. Also, just a note that I am, again, we're recording the session, so feel free if you miss a portion of it. It's really hard to troubleshoot for as many attendees as we've got registered for this. We'll do our best to make some recommendation. If you're having technical difficulties, I'm not saying hesitate to let us know. We'll try to fix it, but it may just be that it just happens. It happened earlier this week with the session. We apologize. It's just when you have this many people in a platform, it's difficult to make sure that everything is working properly for everyone, but we'll do our best. Oftentimes, restarting and then rejoining can be a way to get in if there is a problem during the session. Also, I'll just make plenty of time for you all to ask questions. We had a lot of great questions. We had a session of this earlier in the week on Tuesday. Tons of great questions, and I will make sure that I take some deliberate breaks to give you all an opportunity to ask questions, whether it be using the chat or using your microphone. To speak up and ask, but let's do that again, given the size of the registration for this during those designated times, please. And I will not be able to see the chat because I'm going to primarily do live demo, which is, I think, the best way to learn about the resources that you have available in terms of ebooks. So just keep that in mind. That will be hard for me to see, but my colleague Mike White is here with us, and Mike will be more than happy to relay those questions to me, and he'll stop me anytime he feels like something needs to be answered right away so that we can go ahead and get your questions answered. I'll follow up today's session with an email, probably early tomorrow, with the recording and with the PowerPoint slide presentation in PDF format. And of course, if there are any questions after the fact, you'd be welcome to drop me a line via email to ask the questions that you have. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started with our session on ebooks this afternoon. And just want to quickly review the objectives, if you will, for this session. I want to help you to identify our core ebook collections in Galileo, what we have, what's available for you. Now, some of you may have collections that you purchase on your own, things like Tumblebooks or Tumblebook Cloud or Hoopla or other ebook platforms that are out there. There are lots of them, but we'll talk about the ones that we offer as core from Galileo. We'll talk a little bit about searching ebook collections, both in terms of finding the ones that we have, how do I surface these, and then also searching the collections themselves. And you're welcome to offer suggestions when I'm just kind of looking at those platforms with you, and offer any types of materials you'd like me to perhaps look for. We'll talk about locating hidden ebook collections that may be helpful. There are some general databases that have ebooks in them, and they're kind of hidden below the radar screen a little bit. So I will talk a little bit about 3 collections that may be helpful to you. We'll view and use the key features of the Galileo ebook platforms. Essentially, we offer two platforms. EBSCO ebooks from one of our very standard vendors. EBSCO provides us with a lot of content. And then ProQuest eBook Central provides us with a lot of content. And the last thing I want to do, I think it's really important to talk a little bit about Novelist even though it's not necessarily an ebook access tool, Novelist is a great collection development tool and also an ebook evaluation tool that you can use. And we'll talk about that in context and try to get some time to get into Novelist as well to take a look around and see the functionality and talk about how you might use that in your work. So we'll start out by just talking a little bit again, and I'll start out today by going out in just a moment. I will turn the presentation off here and just do the rest of the presentation primarily from inside my browser, where I have this presentation also in Google Slides. But I want to start with just talking a little bit about the collections that are available. As I mentioned, We have two major providers that we work with on the Galileo side, and that's EBSCO eBooks. And the two major collections that are K-12 specific are the EBSCO eBooks K-8 collection and the high school collection. We also have other collections that could be of value of interest. The public library collection has a lot of fiction, a lot of nonfiction, and some reference books that could be useful. We have the community college collection and the academic collection, which could be useful. Again, those are geared more toward those first 2 years of college types of content. But if you have students in AP or International Baccalaureate courses, those collections could certainly prove helpful to them. So all of these collections listed are Galileo Core, and they're available for everyone. Every K-12 library has access to these. They are in traditional ebook formats, and the question came up the other day, do we have any e-audio books? And the short answer to that question is no. That's not a space that we've really been able to afford or provide any materials. Our public libraries generally provide a lot of that type of content. There's a lot of partnerships I know going on between public libraries and K-12 libraries, and certainly I'll speak to that in a few minutes when I talk about e-read kids from our public libraries. It's sort of a final thing to talk about today. But there is not really any e-audio content, unfortunately, as yet provided directly by Galileo as a core resource. Now, that said, if you do need read-along content, most of our article databases do provide it. For articles that are in that HTML format, it will offer a read-along option. And Britannica articles also offer read-along capability. So if you're using pretty commonly used databases in the K-12 environment like SERS Discoverer, Explora, or any of those EBSCO or ProQuest databases, they do in fact provide read-alongs options for a lot of the content in article format. So just wanted to recap that. So we also wanted to talk about a little bit about how to get to them. And I did some screen captures on here, but I'll do this live in a couple of minutes. All of the ebooks that you have access, well, maybe not each and every ebook that you have access to, but a large majority of the ebooks that you have access to are discoverable by that Search Galileo search, that main search when you log into Galileo to the main page that's right there front and center. They can be searched, and you can find individual ebook titles by searching in that Search Galileo option. If you're looking specifically for the ebooks by database name, for example, if I was looking for the K-8 collection, I could go and find it in the E's for EBSCO K-8 collection. So you can find those ebooks alphabetically by name. And we also offer the Galileo database search, which is a new functionality that we added more front and center to the Galileo interface. On all of the views that you have available to you, with the exception of the elementary view, you have the database search. And I'll talk a little bit more about those views in a few minutes. But you can search ebooks databases just by searching by a keyword. So I'll show you in a few minutes when we take a look at these specifically that I can go in, throw the ebooks as a keyword search into that Galileo database search and find a pretty substantial and accurate list of the databases that provide ebook content, including some of those ones that I mentioned that are a little bit of an odd and end hidden collection. So certainly you can get to them in a variety of different ways, and just wanted to show you the A to Z list there. You can certainly find your databases alphabetically there, the database search, and you see here, I've done the search here for ebooks, and you see that in tiny, tiny print, my apologies, that the ebook databases are listed. So I just wanted to point to being able to find various ebooks. And this will be better and easier to show you, but I just wanted to show you that I've included slides here. I wanted to cover all the features of ebooks, but we'll do that when we go out to the actual ebook collections in just a minute. And there's lots of features and functionality within the ebook environment that you'll want to take a look at. So let's start out by just I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the presentation here. I'm going to go ahead and go into my browser window. And Mike White, if you can let me know when you see my browser window, you should see my slides first.
Yep, I see your screen.
Yep. So I'm going to hop over to the Galileo portal where I am logged in. If you're from Cherokee County Schools, I chose you today to the Cherokee County Schools site. I just wanted to show you quickly that you can do an advanced search in the Discover search if you want to kind of help yourself be able to find ebooks more readily. You can limit to a format type book. Here, there's lots of different ways you can limit. You can also limit by full text, and it helps a little bit. You can also limit by specific journal titles. There's so many different ways that you can limit here in the advanced search. But I will just show you I'll use the example that I used one day. I was working with a group of teachers and in Jones County, and I worked with, I had a full day. I spent 20 minutes with each and every grade level. And then I spent 20 minutes with the resource officers, which included the resource staff, which included our computer lab folks and our coaches. And so coaches were asking, well, hey, do you have anything that can give me rule books and books about sports and sportsmanship? And I'm like, I think we can do that. So I went in and I searched for soccer, for example, and I just used the Galileo Discover search. And you'll see that soccer appears. There's Soccer Science on the Pitch from eBook Central, and I'll talk a little bit more about eBook Central in a minute. But you see that there's a good number. Here we have soccer, and in some cases, and I'll talk more to this in a few minutes, you'll see the Lexile level is listed. I'll go ahead and talk about this now. You see the Lexile level is listed for this particular title at 400. None of our ebook collections specifically do a good job yet with being able to be searched by Lexile or grade level or other limiting or tool that you all use. But as you can see, they are starting to add that data into records in the EBSCO ebook collections, which is great. And when they get a groundswell of titles that have that information, they plan to, and we've asked them about this, and they've let us know that they plan to, once they have enough book records that have that information, they plan to make those databases searchable by Lexile level and other means. Now, there are many databases in the Galileo environment that can be searched by Lexile currently. But unfortunately, the ebook K through 8 collection and the high school collection are not those databases. So I just wanted to point that out early on. I'm hoping that will be sooner rather than later that they make that available. But do notice that this is available, that the metadata for that information is there. And sometimes even if it's not there, if you check the front matter or the back matter of the book when you're looking at the actual book, you may find that information in that information about the book. I'm going to go ahead and go to the ebook record and talk through all those items that we saw on the 2 slides that I have, just to show you all of the different ways that you can use the ebook. When you first arrive on the ebook's sort of bibliographic record here, you see that Lexile limiter is there as an item. If you would please unmute, because I think I'm coming through on someone's microphone, and I think Mike muted everybody and muted me in the process. Sorry. Good job, Mike.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute you and it didn't. I didn't have the option for some reason. Sorry.
That's happened to me. You're forgiven because it's confusing. So we're still learning the ins and outs of Microsoft Teams, folks. It's not ideal in every respect for presenting in this way. So you have things like you can add a list of ebooks to Google Drive. When you're actually in the ebook K8 collection, you can have the option to add things to the Google Classroom, and I'll show you that a little bit later when we go in. You can folder items. Students or you can make lists of books that you want to use later. You can email the book record to yourself. One thing that I always like to point out that's very important whenever you're working with any content in our databases, if you capture this link at the top of the screen, unfortunately, it won't work in all likelihood if you were to send that to someone and they were trying to access from off campus especially. But if you go down to the permalink button that you'll see on every record pretty much in the EBSCO environment and click on that, it's going to open a link at the top of the page for you that you can copy. And once you copy that link, you can put that link in your learning management system. You can put it in a document that you're sending to parents. So, well, hey, my parents, I have a parent that asked for a reading list for their child, that type of thing. And what will happen is whether they be in the building or in the school or at home, when that link is clicked on, if they're at school, they'll go directly to the book. If they're at home, they'll be prompted for the Galileo password, and then after they enter it, they'll go directly into the book. So the permalink is a way of ensuring that you always get clean and tidy access to that book, because it builds in the authentication for you and you won't lose access to it after you've sort of shut down your session, because these links are not permanent. This link is by definition permanent. So I always like to show that early on in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and I will talk a little bit about downloading. I won't get deep into that, but I will provide you the documentation about downloading the ebooks. I'll be the first to admit that downloading the ebooks is a little bit of a convoluted process, but there are some improvements coming down the pipe for that, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'll go ahead and click on the PDF full text for the book, and just review a few more of those features that I had indicated on those slides that you saw very briefly, just as we're getting into the ebooks here. I am far away from my network router, so bear with me. I might be a little bit slow. Mike, I still haven't deployed my new router. Still debating. Maybe I need to. Well, while that's loading, I'll just show you that across the top of the screen, you have many of the same tools that you saw on the side earlier. You can email and save pages, which is helpful for titles that are sort of larger page, more than 100 pages or so. But there will be page limits on the amount of pages that you can save as a PDF or the amount of pages that you can email to yourself. Those are just restrictions that the publisher has put on that particular item. I'm going to reload this and see if it loads this time. There it goes. So I just kind of got caught in the mix. One of the things that kids really like, and this is more evident and more helpful with something that's like a large chapter book for a high school student, multi-chapter book, meaning not like a chapter book, but a book that has, chapters with different topics. If I go to the search within, and then I go and I search the word pitch. Oh, I'm surprised it didn't find that word. It might be a simpler book here. Ball. What it will do is I can search within the book, and this is great if you're talking about a larger text where you're really looking for a keyword. I used the example the other day, and I'll show this when I go to eBook Central. I looked for books about treaties. So I used the example that a student might be in a larger reference book about treaties, might be looking specifically for information about the Treaty of Versailles, and being able to find the chapters and pages that particular treaty is discussed on can be incredibly helpful to a student using these. Now, I will say that some of the features do hinge upon creating a My EBSCOhost account. One of those is the My Notes feature. The My Notes is a little bit lackluster. You can sign in once you have a My EBSCOhost account and create notes about the particular book. And, so it's great for a student who wants to take notes on the book, although they're not necessarily tied to specific pages or anything like that. It's not that fancy, but it does give you a note-taking option within the book. So that is just a quick look at the major features. Well, let me go ahead and scroll down one more time just to show you also that, you get the full table of contents here for the book, including the copyright information. And I also just wanted to point out, I mentioned the front matter and the back matter as places where you might find, this is an Abdo title, where you might find more information about the Lexile level or reading level, maybe not. But in some cases, you will find it on the front page or the back page of the title of the book. For me, it's of course going to have trouble downloading. There it goes. So yeah, not on this particular title that I see immediately, but I have noticed it there before. going to go ahead and go back. So that was, again, just the first shot at looking at ebook. My point being that these books are discoverable through that main Galileo search that you find on the main page. The next thing I wanted to point out, again, by way of showing you some other ebook collections that are available here, is the Galileo databases search. And just to tell you what we've done, I mentioned earlier the views, and I wanted to point out those views specifically. We have created views with refined content to address the needs of elementary school students, middle school students, high school students, and educators. So earlier we are in the educator view, and I just want to point out that within that educator view, which is sort of the view that contains all Galileo content, we've added databases, including ProQuest eBook Central, which we'll talk about in a few minutes in more detail, and the EBSCO eBooks Academic Collection. These are collections like that are ERIC, the professional development, because this is professional development education. We wanted to provide for several categories, obviously instructors, media specialists, teachers, but also we had student teachers in mind. If you have student teachers that you're working with and you need them to be able to find, that content that might be useful to them in their coursework while they're also student teaching, then we wanted to design a platform where you could get, first of all access to all Galileo, but secondarily, you could get access to those databases that are most useful quickly for K-12 educators. But just popping over, changing views to the high school view here, you see that we've added databases that are specific, that are best starting places for high schoolers doing research, like Explora, and then the EBSCO eBooks High School Collection. So I just wanted to point out the differences in views. And I will point out also that the high school search in the Discover search and the elementary search will not always search each and every database. And that is by design so that we're giving the best content experience to that level of student possible. So in order to make sure that you're searching everything, you can always be in the educator view. So with that in mind, also, I just wanted to go here and show you that the database search is available. So if I wanted to search, as I mentioned before, if I'm in the high school view and I want to see the ebook collections that are available to me, I see that as a high school student, I would have eBook Central, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes, the community college collection, the high school collection, obviously, the K-8 collection. I mentioned earlier some hidden collections like the Georgia History ebooks. That's one of the hidden collections that I'll talk about a little bit more about in a bit. And that's free ebooks on Georgia history from the University of Georgia Press. But basically, I have been able to generate a list of all of the ebook and ebook related databases that a high school student has access to using this Galileo database search. So just want to point that out as another means to get access to these databases. And then going back to the main page one more time, just to again clarify access, we have also an all databases list here available in Galileo. And if you click on that, you get a list of everything. So if you're browsing by title and I want to see all those EBSCO ebook collections, I can go to E and I see all of those ebook collections in one place. Just to point out all the different ways that you can get to the databases that I've mentioned. I'm going to take a quick pause right now because I've covered a lot of ground so far. And Mike, are there any questions in the chat, or does anybody want to open up your mic and ask a question?
There's no questions in the chat right now.
Okay. Well, I'll take a brief pause before we go to the next sort of segment of searching around and give you all an opportunity to type in questions if you have them. While I'm doing that, I'm going to check my notes and I'll come back in just a second to get going again. Okay, any questions at this point, Mike? Are we good to go?
No questions right now.
Thank you so much. So just again to review some of the things that I'd mentioned earlier, when you're within those ebook specific collections for K-12, you have the PDF option to view the book anytime. These do work well in the mobile environment. We have made Galileo, when we did our redesign, it's much more mobile friendly and you can access all of the databases via Galileo as you have in the past. As I mentioned, you have the option to add to Google Classroom or Google Drive, and there's also the permalink. And again, I mentioned the table of contents, the ability to search within the book, save pages or email pages to yourself, and then again, to be able to take notes on the book. Again, that requires that My EBSCOhost account. So again, I just want to point out searching through ebooks one more time. I'm going to go to just a specific collection, and I'm going to this time go to the EBSCO. I'm just going to type in the word EBSCO here, and I want to get to the EBSCO K8 collection. I go ahead and click on that. And while I'm doing that, let me backtrack 1 second. And again, Danita, I know we talked about this and making sure that we covered this. If you ever want to provide a direct link outside of the Galileo portal, say, for example, you don't want students to have to go through the portal, do the search, find the database, and you want to eliminate some steps for them, we certainly have created the means for you to do that as well, and it's called Galileo Express Links. So if you want to capture an institution-specific Galileo Express link for the EBSCO ebook K8 collection, for example here, I click on that Express Link button in the database list once I find it, and then I can simply copy this, and then I can put that database on a list of databases. I can put it in my learning management system, other places that I might need it. If I want students to search there specifically for an assignment, once I copy that link, and I'll show you, I'll go into another browser window here and paste it, it will take me directly to that database. So I don't have to go through the portal. And again, just to point out, if I'm on site in the building at school, it'll take me straight there and I won't have to do anything else. If I'm at home, it'll prompt me for the Galileo password. Then I'll go straight there and be able to log in and access the ebook collection. As you can see, this is specifically the ebook K8 collection. And we have set this up, and I think, Mike White, you did the work to do this, to make sure that there were some sort of fun things viewable right off the bat. Football is front of mind, obviously, for a lot of people, so there's some cool little football books there to get started, magnet books, other things, and you can also browse by category over on the left-hand side of the screen, so we have that sort of categorical browse. There's a basic search where you can just search by keyword or topic, and there's also an advanced search where you can go in and, again, as I mentioned before, apply various limits. One of the interesting things about these book collections is there's a fair amount of material in other languages. I did this search for fun yesterday. We were talking about Galileo redesign and making it more clear which of our databases do have foreign language materials. And I went in and I can limit my language to French, and then I can just do a blank search. And you could generate, if you needed that for a foreign language class, or English as a second language, or for whatever reason, you can generate titles in other languages if they're available. And you can see there's not a lot available in the K8 collection in French, but there's at least something that could be of use to you. I'll go ahead and go back and do a new search here, just because I'm starting over. It threw me other highlights this time, butterflies and beetles. My child would love this. But you can also limit, just to show you some of the other things. Again, I can't wait till they put Lexile level limiting in here. You can do publication date, publication, publisher, lots of ways you can limit your search. One of the tricks that I do, if I am looking for a book and I want to make sure that it's elementary and related, I mean, this isn't going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it can be helpful with limiting to books that are more K5 ready. So we have Outdoor Science Lab for kids, 52 family-friendly experiments. So I have limited there a little bit by doing that. Do note also, I meant to mention this earlier in the context, and I'll show you again where it lives on the slide. There is a dictionary available through EBSCO databases. And so if there's Oxford American College Dictionary, so if someone needed to look up a word from the book, they could. But also, just to show you again, I'll open up this Outdoor Science Lab book because it looks like fun. You see all those options that I mentioned before, including that Google Classroom option, because I am specifically in that K8 collection now. That table of contents, the ability to email to myself and other things here. But I also have that dictionary right there in line. So if I was a kid and I found a word that I couldn't quite grasp or understand, I wanted to look it up, I could do that here in the dictionary without having to leave the page, which is kind of awesome. So those are the major features of our EBSCO ebook collections, and also just finding these collections within Galileo. What I want to talk about next is one of the other collections that we offer is ProQuest eBook Central. And I'll be the first again to admit that this is more academic related types of material, but there's lots of potential use here for reference, even certainly for middle schoolers, high school and AP, and also I think for personal professional development. So for example, a few years ago, I was working on, I used to do a lot of professional development training, and I was doing a session on classroom management for librarians. And I was able to go into ProQuest eBook Central and find several books that were super helpful to me as not someone who has a degree in education to learn more about that and to be able to prepare a class that was relatable for librarians on that topic. So this is ProQuest eBook Central. Again, just to show you the basic features before we go out and have a look. And I use classroom management. We have this book here, 1 Minute Discipline. Just like with the EBSCO ebooks, this can be read online, or you can create an account to download it and read offline. There are options to download PDF chapters and to download pages. There are limits on those, and when you engage with those features and functionality, it will tell you what those limits are. But you can also print a certain amount. Download pages in PDF always is likely to come with restrictions, but those restrictions are generally pretty clearly defined within the context of the book. Taking a brief pause here, Mike. I see the chat is blinking, so I was going to see if there was a question.
No questions. We did have someone that had to go to another training, and she was just saying that she'll watch the recording.
Awesome, thank you. That's the best eye I can keep on it from inside my browser. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move forward then. So a lot of the same features here, the ability to email, the ability to save and send a link to the book, to cite the book that you saw in the EBSCO ebooks are available here in ProQuest eBook Central. Let me go ahead and give you a look at ProQuest eBook Central. And we'll just go ahead and just go back to my other search. And let's see if this works today, Mike. Or see if I'm going to have to go back to the beginning. Now there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and go into eBook Central from ProQuest. And I'll use the same example that I used earlier this week and search for treaty. So we have sustainable development. Again, these are pretty academic heavy titles. The Columbia River Treaty, the Human Rights Treaty. And I don't know why my results probably look different today. I probably searched it a little bit differently. But if I wanted to go in here, Evolution and Investment Treaty Law and Arbitration, Columbia River Treaty. I had a really nice reference book the other day that came up on treaty. Maybe it was treaties. Maybe I'll try again. Multiple treaties. Unequal treaties in China. Well, point being, it never comes up the same point. But just to show you also, unequal treaties in China. If I wanted to search this and I wanted to find out specifically more information, once I go into the read online option, you'll see that I have the ability to search within the book. So if I was looking for specifically treaties related to economics, find the keyword economic 22 times. So much like what I saw with the EBSCO ebooks, I can come here and I can go into the individual chapters and see where economics or the word economic is mentioned and see if it's in the right context for the research that I'm doing. And just like before, we have our ability to do all the major functionality across the ebook across the top of the page. So again, that's just a quick look at ProQuest eBook Central. There is an advanced search here as well for that. And again, this is available for you at all of the public schools in the state, and all the schools in the state. Pretty much everyone has this database. So coming back to the slide deck just for a few minutes, we're at 3:35. I want to talk a little bit about hidden ebooks. There's some ebooks that just don't necessarily come up on the surface. I already mentioned the Georgia history books from University of Georgia Press. We'll take a quick look at those. Surge Discover. I know I hear often from you all. We have Surge Discover, but are we ever going to have Surge Issues Researcher again? I don't know. But Surge Discover does have a nice little collection of nonfiction ebooks that could be helpful. There are things like cultures, about cultures, general science, biographies. And then there's MAS Ultra, which is sort of a middle to high school database, which has about 900 ebooks. I kind of just stumbled upon these looking around, and there's some things like a Making of a Nation series, which have a lot of U.S. history. And then I found like a neat little musical instrument series as I was looking around in MAS Ultra. So there's some interesting and potentially useful things there. So let's go out and have a look at Surge Discover, Georgia History ebooks, and MAS Ultra. So go back to Galileo main page here. So I'll start with MAS Ultra because you have to kind of trick MAS Ultra into giving you the ebook list. So here's the database. I'm going to go ahead and go in. Again, articles, high school students. There's also a version in Spanish for those of you who may need to know. What I do here, I don't see obviously anything that tells me there's a bunch of ebooks in here. So what I can do here is I can go on into the advanced search. I can go down to limit by book. And then I can go ahead and do a blank search with that limit to book applied. And it finds the book about, a book about saxophone, a book about oboe. So I'll mention those. The didgeridoo. So if I want to learn everything there is to know about the didgeridoo, I can go ahead and click on this book, and then I can view the HTML full text. And also I mentioned the read-along option and the EBSCO content. Again, this is one where this applies. You can actually listen to this book if you so desire, because it has that play-along feature that you see right there. You can even change the accent for it if you so desire. So that is just a quick look at that sort of interesting collection, about 900 titles when you do that blank search in MAS Ultra. I'm going to pop back to the Galileo main page here and just quickly share with you Surge Discover. Go into Surge Discover. This one's a little bit more, this one sticks out a little bit more. It's a little bit clear where it is. It's featured right on the main page of Surge. But, you know, if you go there every day, it can be easy to look past it. So I say to Mike all the time that I go digging around in the help screens or talk with one of our vendors and find things that I never knew existed. So I can go here to the nonfiction books. There's a little tag right at the top, and you see that it breaks it down for me by what they're about: animals, arts and humanities, biographies. I guarantee my 9-year-old will love reading about all the animals in here. So there's things on animal adaptation, animal habits, animal hearing, animal sight, smell, touch. So some really attractive looking ebooks about those. So let's read all about the velociraptor. I can go ahead and open the PDF of that book, and don't know that it is Weekly Reader Publishing, so it's the most wonderful publisher in the world, but it does have the full text, images, which are pretty cool, and information about those animals. So that is Surge Discover. And the last thing to share with you, again, is the Georgia History ebooks. So if I go in and just, again, you see how often I use the database search, because I find that to be an incredibly valuable tool that we've added to Galileo. I can go to the Georgia History ebooks, and these come from the Digital Library of Georgia. So we have early Georgia magazines, a Georgia Liar, Sea Islands of Georgia. And if I click on this, for example, they are searchable, but they're also browsable. I see that I have this book is scanned and available in full text, and actually pretty nicely scanned. So that is the Georgia History ebooks. Any new questions come through about those collections? Again, just did my best to discover any hidden treasures that we have amongst the Galileo environment.
Yeah, we had one question come in. I'm not sure if this was directed at a particular ebook collection, but the question is, for chapter books, is there an audio feature?
In most of our collections, unfortunately, no. But for for the ones in MAS Ultra, and that's about the only place that I know of any audio functionality, and it's because it's an HTML functionality where it can read and follow along. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some functionality for read along in Britannica and many of the articles that we subscribe to, if they're available in that HTML versus PDF format, there's almost always a read along option in the ProQuest resource or the EBSCO environment.
And another question just came in. Is there a one pager with this information?
There is not, but I'll be glad to. I plan to share the slides, and I can certainly. It's a good idea. I can have this kind of converted into a one pager. Good suggestion. We'll do that. Anything else?
That is all the questions. Janie, who asked a question about the one pager, said, "Yay, thank you."
Yeah, that's no problem. That's a good idea. Or I'll give it to Joy and let Joy do it. She makes better one pagers than I do. Joy is our marketing person, and she probably would enjoy making it. I would, not that I wouldn't, but she's just more talented at that kind of thing. I can build you a good presentation all day long, but not so much with the fun publishing software. So access to ebooks, just a couple of things with that. They're very easy to read online in both the desktop and the mobile environment. As I mentioned, the EBSCO ebooks can be cumbersome in the are cumbersome in the mobile environment. It requires creating an EBSCO, and not to read, but to download. I mean, in the readability, just as if you're online and connected, it's super easy to read them in the online environment. But if you want to download them and then have access to them after the fact, that you have to download 2 pieces of software and have an EBSCO account, and it's pretty challenging. However, they haven't made a ton of progress on this yet, but there is now an EBSCO app, and it can be downloaded from either the Apple App Store or the Android or the Google Play Store, whatever you want to call it today. They changed the names of those things so fast I can't keep up. But you can download that app and you can access some ebooks, and eventually they'll have it so that with just a My EBSCO host account, the ebooks will be accessible and usable. But I will say that EBSCO app, the article content is already pretty accessible and usable. So just a note about that. There are really good, and thanks again, Mike White designed the download and checkout option for these ebooks for your mobile device. That's available in one of our Galileo FAQs, which you'll find on our support page. And just as a final point about that, there may be questions also about, well, can more than one person check out a Galileo ebook at a time? Yes, in 99.9% of all cases. We have a very small, in the overall scope of things, subset of ebooks that do limit the number of checkouts. They're usually older ebooks, and that's sort of funny to say these days, older ebooks, things from sort of the early aughts, the early 2000s, that we bought from another company way back when, that are still available and still accessible, that have some of those usage restrictions. But Mike and I were talking about this on Tuesday when we presented this, and we maybe get one support ticket a year about that. So the odds of you running into one are pretty slim, but you might. So I wanted to let you know about that particular situation. Next thing I want to just talk about briefly, and we have about 15 minutes left. I want to cover 2 more things, and I'll just sort of cover 2 things at once here in the slides, and then go back to demo for Novelist. Novelist, let me go ahead and clarify right out of the gate that it's not a source of ebooks themselves, but it can be a helpful search, evaluation, and collection development tool. It's extremely powerful. You can do things like find read-alikes. This is great if you have a student who loves a particular book, whether that book be print book or ebook. You can search novelist and find other books like it, and I know that can be so helpful. I'll be first to admit, I have a 9-year-old who's a reluctant reader, so when we find something that we like, read-alikes are really helpful to kind of keep her interested and keep her engaged. You can search Novelist Plus, whether it be Novelist Plus or Novelist Plus K8, by Lexile, grade level, accelerated reader interest book level. So it's great to be able to search that. So if you found in one of the ebook collections a book that you were wanting to find that information about, until that's propagated more in our databases by our vendors, you could perhaps check the Lexile level for that book in Novelist Plus if it's available and listed in there. Not going to make a promise that everything in the ebook collections is listed in Novelist, but you have a pretty good chance of finding that particular ebook in there. And then also you'll find content like reviews and additional information about books. You'll find things really, again, a really powerful tool. You'll find things like creating book displays information, really awesome stuff to help out with collection development and planning displays and other things. And the last thing I'll mention, then I'm going to go out and spend the rest of the time doing Novelist with you all, is I want to mention eRead Kids that the public libraries makes available. This collection is not available through your K-12 Galileo account, unfortunately. This is something that the public libraries buy. But some of you may remember that the public libraries provided Tumble books in the past, and they were very restrictive about access to that. What was happening is multiple users would log on in a public school, and Tumble books would kick them off. And that doesn't happen with eRead Kids. The vendor has a different attitude toward this. They don't mind if public schools access and use eRead Kids, but they want them to do it through a public library account. So if your students or you have your public library Galileo password, the eRead Kids vendor does not have any problem with you using it at school. So again, it requires a Pines card or your public library card, depending on where you live. If you're in the Atlanta area or DeKalb, one of those libraries that doesn't use Pines, your library card will still get you into eRead Kids for your system. But it does require that public library card number and PIN to access it, just so you're aware of that. And it is a K through 2 focused collection. A lot of really good content in there, a lot of really popular content. And you'll see it's got some similar things to what we presented in the EBSCO ebook collections, but probably some things that are a little bit more popular, to be quite honest with you. So that's what you'll find in eRead Kids. So last thing I want to do, and again, Mike, it sounds like you're about to chime up with a question I was about to ask.
Well, Jennifer had made a comment in the chat that says eRead Kids is available through ClassPass if your school partners.
Yes. That's a great comment. Jennifer, thank you for that. And as I mentioned earlier, more and more of our public schools are partnering with our public libraries. I know a lot of systems are doing that. I know AFPL is doing that. And I know that's a growing initiative across the state. That makes that type of sharing all that much easier, because basically what that means is some systems are coordinating to get public library cards into the hands of kids so they can access these electronic resources much earlier on in the process. So they have limited access to the public library resources through that card with parental approval. Thank you for mentioning that, Jennifer. That's not my baby, but I think it's a great baby that the Georgia Public Library Service is working on. All right. Well, last thing to do is to take a closer look at Novelist. And good credit to the individual library systems that are working on that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Novelist K8 Plus. I will say there is a pretty clear delineation between K through 8 material and other material. So for example, if I came here and I was looking for reviews for Twilight, which is more young adult is covered more clearly by the full grown-up version, if you will, of Novelist. But just to show you some of the basic features, there's lots of browsing options, genre appeal, and then also award winners like your Caldecott and Newbery winners and others. There's always a feature on a especially for area like working for youth. Quick links to things like book display ideas. Love that they have book display ideas. When I worked at Mercer University, I was responsible like quarterly for book displays, and I was horrible at it. So I'd love to have had this then. But certainly ideas on book displays that could be utilized there. Books to movies, curriculum connections, and other things. And then some how do I finding read-alikes. So I mentioned the whole idea of read-alikes. If you need to be able to do that, it has a specific help on doing that. And it's a really good way to kind of find what you want on there. Going back to the home page here, just to kind of start fresh, to show you the advanced search and how powerful that is. You see also this the recommended reading list by genre and age group on the left-hand side of the screen there. But in the advanced search, as I mentioned, if you have a title and you want to evaluate that title potentially for collection development or use, you can evaluate it by grade level. Again, you can search by Lexile level and score, accelerated reader interest level, even Dewey range search. It's, again, highly powerful. I do love that they've added these two. You can search by author's gender identity, again, making things relatable, author's cultural identity. Those are pretty good advanced options there. So there's lots of, again, power within this. But if I wanted to search here, I'll search for ages 9 through 12. I'm trying to think of books that my child has enjoyed recently. Oh, she's got so many little series things that she's working on. But if I was generally looking for Babysitter's Club, also can be helpful, I think, in kind of helping you to evaluate books in series. We have the Babysitters, but just to show you what an average book entry, here's the Babysitter's Club from January 2016. You see that it's got more about the book, the genres, the various credits about the book. Oftentimes it'll have book reviews, but you see just anytime you look for a book on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to get the read-alongs right there with it. So some pretty powerful tools available for you here for reviewing and evaluating titles. So again, a quick look at Babysitter, well, not Baby, at Novelist K8 Plus and Novelist for you. With that said, that's everything I wanted to cover. And again, I want to open the floor for questions, either via microphone or via chat. I also want to conclude by thanking you all so much for your time and attention. And we have plenty of time left for any questions that you all might have here as we wrap up. Anything?
There's no new questions in the chat right now.
Well, and Danita, it occurs to me that I forgot that I set this for 3:45 instead of 4, so I've already gone over by about 10 minutes. So my apologies. And of course, if they needed to leave, they left.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm good at doing that. I started a meeting last week 15 minutes earlier, and so everybody came in a little bit later and went, I thought it started at 3:45. No.
Yep. Well, next time we'll do this for an hour instead of making it 45 minutes. I think that might be helpful and give more people an opportunity to ask questions. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your attention, your attendance, your great questions. And if anything else comes up, let me know. And I will take that good idea to generate sort of a one-pager with all this information and run with it. And also, you'll get the slides so that you can have the information there for yourself tomorrow, and also the recording. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon. You're most welcome, Anita. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.